It's pretty amazing when you stop to think about it. What could the mold growing on an old piece of bread possibly have in common with the moss on a stone or a fern deep in the forest? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at how these super simple organisms are actually life's unseen architects. Turns out, they hold the blueprints for some of our most advanced ideas.
So let's start right there with that mold. I mean, it seems like a total nuisance, right? Something you just want to get rid of. But the way it breaks down that bread, well, that's basically the exact same engine that fuels an entire forest floor. Answering this question really gets you to the core rules of survival, recycling, and growth that literally power our planet.
Our journey is going to start with a fungus I guarantee you've met before, and probably not under the best circumstances. Rhizopus, the common bread mold. Now, while we might see it as a pest, it's actually a master of survival and recycling. And through it, we get to our first really key biological concept.
So, how does this thing even eat? Well, Rhizopus is what we call a saprophyte. Now, that's a fancy word, but all it means is it doesn't have a mouth. Instead, it just oozes these digestive enzymes right onto its food, breaking it all down on the outside before soaking up the nutrients. Seriously, think of it like an external stomach. It's an incredibly efficient way to turn waste back into life.
And its whole body is just perfectly designed for this job. You've got these things called stolons, which are like these little horizontal filaments that just creep across the surface looking for new territory. Then you have rhizoids that dig in like tiny roots, anchoring the fungus and absorbing all those nutrients. From there, sporangiophores shoot upwards like tiny stalks, and at the top you have the sporangia. These are the little spherical factories that produce and release thousands and thousands of spores to start the whole cycle over again. What's so fascinating about Rhizopus is its dual nature. I mean, on the one hand, yeah, it's a foe. It spoils our food, can cause infections, and triggers allergies. But it's also a friend. It's absolutely essential for fermenting foods like tempeh. It's used to produce valuable organic acids. And of course, it plays this vital role as a decomposer in our ecosystems. Okay, so from the recyclers, let's move on to the pioneers. If fungi are nature's cleanup crew, then mosses are its first settlers. They represent this incredible evolutionary leap, figuring out how to make their own food just from sunlight.
Mosses are simple. Yeah, but they are so effective. They're non-vascular, which just means they don't have that complex internal plumbing system, like trees do. That's why they have to stay small and need damp places to live. And hey, notice they also have rhizoids. Just like the fungus, they use them to anchor themselves. Their leaves are just a single cell thick, which is perfect for soaking up water and sunlight.
Now, to really understand how they reproduce, we've got to wrap our heads around a really cool concept in plant biology: alternation of generations. I know, it sounds super complex, but it's not, I promise. It just means the organism has two totally distinct forms in its life cycle. One version of itself produces spores, and the other produces reproductive cells, or gametes. So what does this actually look like? Well, the green, leafy, fuzzy carpet of moss that you're used to seeing, that's the gametophyte stage. But every now and then, you might see this thin little stalk with a tiny capsule on top growing right out of it. That's the other generation, the sporophyte, and its one and only job is to make and release spores. Two totally distinct forms, working together to create one continuous life cycle. It's wild.
All right, from mosses, we take another huge evolutionary jump forward to ferns. And ferns, well, they represent a massive upgrade, like going from a landline to a smartphone. They developed an internal plumbing system that completely changed the game for all plant life on Earth.
And here it is, the game changer. Ferns developed a vascular system. This internal plumbing, made of true roots and stems, meant they could transport water and nutrients efficiently. This allowed ferns to grow tall, to really compete for sunlight, and to move into much drier environments. For plant life, this was an absolute revolution.
And you can see this upgrade in their anatomy. That large, elegant leaf, that's called a frond, and it's made up of all those smaller leaflets called pinnae. Underground, they have a stem called a rhizome that stores food. And here's a cool part. If you flip over a frond, you might see these little brown dots. Those are called sori, and they're clusters of sporangia, the spore factories. See? It links them right back to their mossy ancestors.
And ferns aren't just pretty to look at, they have this huge economic and cultural importance. Get this. In Ghana, for example, certain ferns are a key ingredient in traditional palm nut soup, and they're used specifically to help boost breast milk production for new mothers. And if that wasn't enough, they are also powerful ecological workers. Some fern species are so good at absorbing heavy metals from the soil that we actually use them for environmental cleanup. It's a process called phytoremediation. They can literally pull toxins like arsenic right out of the ground. How amazing is that?
Okay, so we've got our recyclers, our pioneers, and our engineers. Fungi, moss, and ferns. But what does any of this have to do with us today? Well, let's see how these ancient strategies show up in one of our most modern activities, farming.
Just think about modern farming practices for a second. When a farmer adds fertilizer to a field, they're just supplying essential nutrients, doing the exact same job as our fungus. When they prune a tree to get a bigger harvest, they're just redirecting the plant's resources and energy, a basic principle of growth. And irrigation? Come on, that's just a man-made vascular system, getting water where it needs to go. We didn't invent these ideas, we just observed them in nature and borrowed them.
And hey, it doesn't even stop with plants. The same exact logic applies to raising animals. Selective breeding, that's just our guided version of natural selection. Practices like flushing, which is just increasing nutrition to boost fertility, that's a direct manipulation of basic reproductive biology. We're applying these fundamental life principles all over the place.
So, here we are, full circle. From the mold on our bread to the moss on a rock, we've seen this beautiful, elegant progression of strategies for survival. These aren't just random facts for a biology test. These are the foundational rules we've borrowed to build our entire world. It really makes you wonder, right? If this much incredible insight is hidden away in a simple patch of moss, what other profound secrets are we overlooking right under our feet?